great.
Okay, I'll share my page now, my screen. And I'll start reading Course in Miracles, Chapter 25, The Justice of Heaven. What can it be but arrogance to think your little errors cannot be undone by heaven's justice? And what could this mean except that they are sins and not mistakes, forever uncorrectable, and to be met with vengeance, not with justice? Are you willing to be released from all effects of sin? You cannot answer this until you see all that the answer must entail. For if you answer yes, it means you will forego all values of this world in favor of the peace of heaven. Not one sin would you retain, and not one doubt that this is possible will you hold dear that sin be kept in place. You mean that truth has greater value now than all illusions, and you recognize that truth must be revealed to you because you know not what it is. To give reluctantly is not to gain the gift because you are reluctant to accept it. It is saved for you until reluctance to receive it disappears, and you are willing it be given you. God's justice warrants gratitude, not fear. Nothing you give is lost to you or anyone, but cherished and preserved in heaven, where all of the treasures given to God's Son are kept for him, and offered anyone who but holds out his hand in willingness they be received. Nor is the treasure less as it is given out. Each gift but adds to the supply, for God is fair. He does not fight against his Son's reluctance to perceive salvation as a gift from him. Yet would his justice not be satisfied until it is received by everyone. Be certain any answer to a problem the Holy Spirit solves will always be one in which no one loses. And this must be true because he asks no sacrifice of anyone. An answer which demands the slightest loss to anyone has not resolved the problem, but has added to it and made it greater, harder to resolve, and more unfair. It is impossible the Holy Spirit could see unfairness as a resolution. To him, what is unfair must be corrected because it is unfair. And every error is a perception in which one, at least, is seen unfairly. Thus is justice not accorded to the Son of God. When anyone is seen as losing, he has been condemned, and punishment becomes his due instead of justice. The sight of innocence makes punishment impossible and justice sure. The Holy Spirit's perception leaves no ground for an attack. Only a loss could justify attack, and loss of any kind he cannot see. The world solves problems in another way. It sees a resolution as a state in which it is decided who shall win and who shall lose, how much the one shall take, and how much can the loser still defend. Yet, does the problem still remain unsolved? For only justice can set up a state in which there is no loser, no one left unfairly treated and deprived, and thus with grounds for vengeance. Problem solving cannot be vengeance, which at best can bring another problem added to the first, in which the murder is not obvious. The Holy Spirit's problem solving is the way in which the problem ends. It has been solved because it has been met with justice. Until it has, it will recur, because it has not yet been solved. The principle that justice means no one can lose is crucial to this course, for miracles depend on justice, not as it is seen through this world's eyes, but as God knows it, and as knowledge is reflected in the sight of the Holy Spirit gives. No one deserves to lose, and what would be unjust to him cannot occur. Healing must be for everyone, because he does not merit an attack of any kind. What order can there be in miracles unless someone deserves to suffer more and others less? And is this justice to the wholly innocent? A miracle is justice. It is not a special gift to some to be withheld from others as less worthy, more condemned, and thus apart from healing. Who is there who can be separate from salvation if its purpose is the end of specialness? Where is salvation's justice if some errors are unforgivable and warrant vengeance in place of healing and return of peace? Salvation cannot seek to help God's Son be more unfair than he has sought to be. If miracles, the Holy Spirit's gift, were given specially to an elect and special group and kept apart from others as less deserving, then is he ally to specialness. What he cannot perceive, he bears no witness to, and everyone is equally entitled to his gift of healing and deliverance and peace. To give a problem to the Holy Spirit to solve for you means that you want it solved. To keep it for yourself to solve without his help is to decide it should remain unsettled, unresolved, and lasting in its power of injustice and attack. No one can be unjust to you unless you have decided first to be unjust. And then must problems rise to block your way, and peace be scattered by the winds of hate. Unless you think that all your brothers have an equal right to miracles with you, you will not claim your right to them, because you were unjust to one with equal rights. Seek to deny, and you will feel denied. Seek to deprive, and you have been deprived. A miracle can never be received because another could receive it not. Only forgiveness offers miracles, and pardon must be just to everyone. The little problems that you keep and hide become your secret sins because you did not choose to let them be removed for you. And so they gather dust and grow until they cover everything that you perceive and leave you fair to no one. Not one right do you believe you have, and bitterness with vengeance justified and mercy lost condemns you as unworthy of forgiveness. The unforgiven have no mercy to bestow upon another. That is why your sole responsibility must be to take forgiveness for yourself. The miracle that you receive, you give. Each one becomes an illustration of the law on which salvation rests. That justice must be done to all if anyone is to be healed. No one can lose, and everyone must benefit. Each miracle is an example of what justice can accomplish when it is offered to everyone alike. It is received and given equally. It is awareness that giving and receiving are the same, because it does not make the same unlike. It sees no differences where none exists. And thus it is the same for everyone, because it sees no differences in them. Its offering is universal, and it teaches but one message. What is God's belongs to everyone and is his due. All right, and once again, the things we discussed during those first 30 minutes came right back up in our reading. This is kind of an interesting, it kind of explains everything about A Course in Miracles in one section. And I love that last part that says, what is God's belongs to everyone, and is his due. Because if you think about it, we are all part of the one mind of God. So what belongs to God really belongs to us, to all of us, because we are all part of the mind of God. So that makes sense. Anybody have any thoughts or questions, or anybody want to share anything that is coming up for them right now with this reading?
Yeah, my video is not working for some reason. But yeah, as you're reading that, I was just thinking of like how to be in like real unity with other people, you know. So often I'm like in my head, thinking about what am I going to say, or thinking about thinking. So I was just thinking about that. You know,
Yeah, that's a great point, Scott. And I think it becomes a practice, right, of remembering to give your thoughts to the Holy Spirit all the time,
mm,
right? And when you practice that, just like anything, just like going to the gym to build muscle, just like, eating food that's good for your body to get healthy, it's the whole thing with the mind. If we try to fix and solve and we already see a problem, then we're already aligned with fear. So how are we going
right,
to fix or solve or offer anything other than fear,
right.
right?
Mm,
Mind of God. So if we can just attach to that and say, okay, who should I talk to? What should I say? Where should I go? There's a practice in A Course in Miracles that has those exact words. Um, and then just let it go, right? And let the
mhm.
words come, let the thoughts come. Because the more we get into our thinking mind, the more we kind of connect to that mind of fear.
Yeah, I love this Course in Miracles teacher. She passed away. Do you know who I'm talking about? Her name is Frances Yu.
No, I don't think I know her.
She's like an Asian lady. She's like best friends of David Hoffmeister.
Oh, yes, I have heard of her. Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
she had
yes.
cancer.
I did read that story.
Yeah, but she was saying that like the course is like experiential, and like that is what really like changes your belief system, is like you experience what the course is saying. So then if you like, the more you experience something, the more like you believe in that type of thing.
Yeah, and the more you can see the effects, right?
Yeah.
So it's like cause and effect, and that's why the lessons are so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Because those are the window to the experience. You take the lesson with you throughout the day, and then you can bring that with you, and you can bring that experience, and all of a sudden you have those aha moments because you see it and you see how it works.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, every time I read certain parts of this, I think of experiences that I've had in my own life where
Yeah.
I've been in situations where I felt like they were unjust, right? Like this isn't
Mm-hmm.
fair. I'm trying to be, so helpful here, and this person is, being cruel or unkind, or they're doing something that's hurtful to me or people that I love. And it's so unfair. So I try to fix it and I try to think, well, if I can just be kinder, or if I can just be more
Mm-hmm.
loving, or if I can just be more giving, then certainly it'll change the whole dynamic. It'll change the energy of the situation. And it's because I'm trying to fix it, right? Because I see a problem, because I've already identified a victimizer and made them wrong, I can't solve the problem because I'm in a place of fear. I'm not in a place of love. So the only way to solve the problem is to give it away, is to give it to the Holy Spirit and ask for help, right? And that's part of those aha moments and those experiences when you're in those states where you're just like, gosh darn it, like this is not fair. And I don't deserve this, and this shouldn't happen like this, and this is wrong. And then when you remember to, okay, this holy instant I give to you, be you in charge, for I shall follow you, certain that your direction will bring me peace, and just really let it go. And it's amazing that all of a sudden, like maybe 2 minutes go by, maybe half an hour goes by, maybe hours or days go by, and boom, the right thing comes into your mind, the voice of God. You're finally opening up to listening and hearing the voice for God because you stop trying to fix it.
Mhm.
And it's always the right thing for everyone, right? Because nobody loses. Because God doesn't see someone being punished for that sin, right? God just wants to be at one because what is God? Who is God? We are God. We are all part of that one mind of God. So why would we want to punish ourselves, right? Even if part of us was acting in a wrong way, it's still part of the one mind of God that we all share. So of course we just want all of those parts to be in that place of at one mint and be in that place of love. All right. Any other conversations? Hi, Maynard. Great to have you here.
Hello, I'm here for a short time.
Okay, well, we're glad you're here. We're just getting ready to start chapter 26.
Okay. Well, this was good discussion. That's very helpful to remind me because I do try to fix everything, and you're very helpful.
Yeah, it's a practice to stop trying to do that because I'm a fixer
Mhm.
too, right?
Okay. Yeah, I was raised to be a fixer,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
hard to let it go.
Well, and some of us who've been in, early conditioning of places of, I mean, I was a child of an alcoholic, so I had to keep everything peaceful, right? And that helped me when I was younger. That was the way I survived. But then, of course, as we get older, we learn that, oh, making everything happy for everybody all the time is not sustainable and it's not your job. So, we have to learn how to heal those frightened parts of our personality from that early childhood trauma, let it go, and then learn how to be in this place of empowerment, right? Because when we understand that we are part of the one mind of God, we know the grandeur of God within us, right? And we know that power and that love and that at one with everyone. But when we're feeling small and we're feeling victimized, then we've separated ourselves from that connection. All right, let's continue. We will go to chapter 26, the transition, the sacrifice of oneness. In the dynamics of attack, is sacrifice a key idea? It is the pivot upon which all compromise, all desperate attempts to strike a bargain, and all conflicts achieve a seeming balance. It is the symbol of the central theme that somebody must lose. Its focus on the body is apparent, for it is always an attempt to limit loss. The body is itself a sacrifice, a giving up of power in the name of saving just a little for yourself. To see a brother in another body, separate from yours, is the expression of a wish to see a little part of him and sacrifice the rest. Look at the world, and you will see nothing attached to anything beyond itself. All seeming entities can come a little nearer or go a little farther off, but cannot join. The world you see is based on sacrifice of oneness. It is a picture of complete disunity and total lack of joining. Around each entity is built a wall, so seeming solid that it looks as if what is inside can never reach without, and what is out can never reach and join with what is locked away within the wall. Each part must sacrifice the other part to keep itself complete. For if they joined, each one would lose its own identity, and by their separation are their selves maintained. The little that the body fences off becomes the self, preserved through sacrifice of all the rest. And all the rest must lose this little part, remaining incomplete to keep its own identity intact. In this perception of yourself, the body's loss would be a sacrifice indeed. For sight of bodies becomes the sign that sacrifice is limited, and something still remains for you alone. And for this little to belong to you are limits placed on everything outside, just as they are on everything you think is yours. For giving and receiving are the same. And to accept the limits of a body is to impose these limits on each brother whom you see. For you must see him as you see yourself. The body is a loss and can be made to sacrifice. And while you see your brother as a body, apart from you and separate in his cell, you're demanding sacrifice of him and you. What greater sacrifice could be demanded than that God's Son perceive himself without his Father, and his Father be without his Son? Yet every sacrifice demands that they be separate and without the other. The memory of God must be denied if any sacrifice is asked of any one. What witness to the wholeness of God's Son is seen within a world of separate bodies, however much he witnesses to truth? He is invisible in such a world, nor can his song of union and of love be heard at all. Yet is it given him to make the world recede before his song, and sight of him replace the body's eyes. Those who would see the witnesses to truth instead of to illusion merely ask that they might see a purpose in the world that gives it sense and makes it meaningful. Without your special function, has this world no meaning for you. Yet it can become a treasure house as rich and limitless as heaven itself. No instant passes here in which your brother's holiness cannot be seen, to add a limitless supply to every meager scrap and tiny crumb of happiness that you allot yourself. You can lose sight of oneness, but cannot make sacrifice of its reality. Nor can you lose what you would sacrifice, nor keep the Holy Spirit from his task of showing you that it has not been lost. Hear then the song your brother sings to you, and let the world recede, and take the rest his witness offers on behalf of peace. But judge him not, for you will hear no song of liberation for yourself, nor see what is given him to witness to, that you may see it and rejoice with him. Make not his holiness a sacrifice to your belief in sin. You sacrifice your innocence with his, and die each time you see in him a sin deserving death. Yet every instant can you be reborn and given life again. His holiness gives life to you, who cannot die, because his sinlessness is known to God, and can no more be sacrificed by you than can the light in you be blotted out because he sees it not. You, who would make a sacrifice of life, and make your eyes and ears bear witness to the death of God and of his holy Son, think not that you have power to make of them what God willed not they be. In heaven, God's Son is not imprisoned in a body, nor is sacrificed in solitude, the sin. And as he is in heaven, so must he be eternally and everywhere. He is the same forever, born again each instant, untouched by time, and far beyond the reach of any sacrifice of life or death. For neither did he make, and only one was given him by one who knows his gifts, can never suffer sacrifice and loss. God's justice rests in gentleness upon his Son and keeps him safe from all injustice the world would lay upon him. Could it be that you could make his sins reality and sacrifice his Father's will for him? Condemn him not by seeing him within the rotting prison where he sees himself. It is your special function to ensure the door be opened, that he may come forth to shine on you and give you back the gift of freedom by receiving it of you. What is the Holy Spirit's special function but to release the Holy Son of God from the imprisonment he made to keep himself from justice? Could your function be a task apart and separate from his own? That was a wonderful section too. I want to welcome Gail. We are on chapter 26. We just read the transition, the sacrifice of oneness, the very first section. So feel free to share if anybody has anything to share or questions or comments.
Yeah, it seems like the Course talks a lot about sacrifice and how we shouldn't sacrifice at all. Maybe you can speak about that a little bit. Like, what does it mean to sacrifice? Like, what is that?
Right. So I think that what the Course is saying is when we feel like we have to give up something, it's because we've attached ourself to something and made it worthy and made it a thing that we are idolizing, right? So in my mind, I think of like, what is there really to sacrifice? If I know myself as the one mind of God, then I have everything. There's nothing I need. There's nothing I need to give up. However, within this world, certainly we see things. We have cars, we have houses, we have children, we have jobs, we have all of these things, right? And it's kind of like how are you in the world but not of the world, right? How do you walk that line? And I guess for me, it's been whenever I become attached to a thing to the point where I feel like I have to idolize it, and that if I give it away, I'm losing, then I've become too attached, right? It's almost like to have something, you have to be able to let it go, because it's only in not holding on to things that we really have the peace and the power of allowing everything we need to come to us freely. I know it seems like not a real concept, but I'll give you an example. So I had a thriving interior design business. I was a single mom, had have two children, and at the time they were in high school. So had the house, had the cars, had the payments, the car payments, the insurance payments, the everything, all the payments to have a life, to provide a living, to have children, to do all the things, right? Still practicing A Course in Miracles, right? So I've been practicing A Course in Miracles since I was pregnant with my second child, who was a son. So, still doing all the coursework, trying to be in this world, but not of this world. But, of course, we get attached to things. Well, all of a sudden, right, we're in this recession and nobody is hiring an interior designer because nobody really needs an interior designer to live, right? So all of a sudden, I've got no money coming in and I start getting afraid, right? Here's fear. Here comes fear, right? And I'm like, oh no. And I have been in a place of being depressed before. So I thought, I can't get into this place of depression. How do I get out of this place of depression? Okay, gratitude. Let me say all the things I'm grateful for. I have this toolbox. I'm grateful for this. I'm grateful for this. I'm grateful for this. And all these things are within my heart. And I'm like, well, how can I keep that vibration, that energetic vibration of abundance, right? By being of service. Well, how can I be of service if nobody's hiring an interior designer right now? Well, I can reach out to Make-A-Wish Foundation. I can reach out to this foundation called Rooms to Heal, where I can actually create rooms for children who have, debilitating diseases within this world of illusion. Yes, I know I'm talking about that, but we're in this world of illusion. So again, we have to learn how to be here, be of service, share our gifts, and be able to see our brother as complete and whole all the time, right? That's just part of the practice. It's like going to the gym. It's like eating food that's good for your body. It's just part of the mindful practice every day. So I start going into this place of, just giving all of my services away. And I felt wonderful for it, right? Because I'm seeing the joy in these people's hearts. I'm making change within the world of illusion for these people who are, suffering. And now I'm at this place where, okay, I'm still no money's coming in, but at least I'm feeling the love of God flowing through me. I'm asking for guidance. I'm giving it to the Holy Spirit every day, doing the practice. And all of a sudden, my phone starts ringing. People start hiring me because I'm in the flow of giving and doing and being, right? I'm being of service all of the time. And while I'm being of service, I'm practicing A Course in Miracles, and I'm practicing, seeing my brother as myself. And I'm not saying this is just one example of many that I can share with you of where I could have seen sacrifice, like, I don't have anything. This is horrible. I'm going to climb back into my bed and pull the covers over my head because I'm going to lose everything. I'm going to lose my house. I'm not going to be able to take care of my children. Life is going to be horrible, right? So it gets to that moment where how do you, I had to finally get to that place where if I lose my house, so what? If I lose, like, so what? It's no big deal. I'll be okay because I'm one with God. I'm one with the mind of God, and I have faith that I'll be okay. And I just have to keep going day to day to day and be in that place of service and of love and of sharing and of giving. And so that's one example that I can share of what sacrifice could mean versus being in a place of service. I don't know if that helped.
So can you share how it turned out?
It was great. I connected with more people, and I had more business, and I got more successful than I'd ever been after that.
That's amazing.
And again, it's like I'm not even doing that anymore. I gave my interior design business to my senior partner because I realized that my passion was really helping others. And although it was great to design houses and do all the things, that wasn't really where my passion was, right? My passion was really in helping people understand their innate power that dwells within their connection to the one mind of God. Yeah.
My theory for a long time has been that you can't outgive God.
Yeah, because what is God? You are God. I am God. How
Exactly.
can you outgive yourself when you're connected to the oneness that we all share? Who would you be giving it to, right? Like, you'd just be
That's
giving
right.
it to yourself.
And that's the reason why you can't outgive God.
Exactly. Exactly. Exactly.
I love that story. Thank you for telling it.
Oh, you're welcome.
Can you talk a little bit about this oneness with God? Um, I have not seen myself as God. God is one that you can worship, that you can that you can uh, see as a source, and I'm a son of God, And I keep hearing that we are God, we are one with God. Can you comment on that a little bit?
Sure. I mean, there are many places in A Course in Miracles that refer to that being one with God. But also, I think it's more of it's a surrendering, but also a joining. And as you're okay, here's an example. So I mentioned that I was in a place where I was really, really depressed. And I had been doing Course in Miracles for many years. And I was pissed because I was in my third failed marriage. I didn't understand why. I thought I was doing everything right. I thought I was practicing A Course in Miracles. I thought I was doing all of the things to attract all of the wonderful things into my life. But again, things into my life, right? I was still looking out here. I was still looking out here for affirmation of what my life would be like, right? I was still looking for my happiness outside of myself, practicing A Course in Miracles, but looking for my happiness outside of myself. And finally, I got to the point where after my third marriage failed, I was pissed, and I was pissed at God. And I said, you know what? I am not interested. If this is all an illusion, this is like so unfair. And why would you put your sons and daughters through this if there's no happily ever after? Like, what is the point? Really? I mean, I would say that, what is the point? I don't understand the point. And I got into a really deep depression, to the point where I was having a hard time getting out of bed. I still had to get my kids on the bus. And this was before I bought my house, by the way. This happened before I went through that, other stage. I just had lost hope. I had lost faith, and I had called a friend one night because I thought I was having a heart attack. I was having chest pains, and I said, "Look, I don't know what's happening or where my life is going, but I just need you to take care of my kids if anything happens to me." And A Course in Miracles says a miracle is when one person temporarily has more and another person temporarily has less. And I was at that place where I temporarily had less. And the person I had reached out to on the phone definitely was that person that temporarily had more. And he said, I see greatness in you, and I just want to remind you of how I don't even remember what his words were, but all I can equivalent it to is the grandeur of God within you. He wanted to remind me that the grandeur of God was within me because I had lost sight of it. And I don't even know if I ever saw it. But I had gotten to that place where there was nowhere left to go on this downward spiral that I was on. And I would say a few minutes after, he started playing his guitar over the phone, and he said, I just want to play you a song to remind you of your greatness. And I don't remember if it was the words of the song or the music or a combination, but all of a sudden I felt something inside of me that I had never noticed before. And it was like this warmth in my chest, like this little spark. And I think it was what they call the embers, right? That don't die, that's within us, that connection to the one mind of God. And I started looking in here and noticing it, and the more I noticed it, the bigger it got. And it's kind of like the Grinch, right? When he looks into his heart and then he realizes, oh my gosh, there's something inside of me that I didn't notice before. And I finally noticed that, wow, there it is. The grandeur of God is within us, right? It's that connection within us. And the Course in Miracles says it's the Holy Spirit that connects us to the one mind of God and reminds us that we are part of that one mind of God. And that was the first time I looked inside instead of looking out here. And at that moment, my life completely changed. I no longer looked out here for anything, for any happiness, not in relationships, not in the relationships with a partner or a spouse or my children or material things or anything, you know, it was like all of this out here was just part of, you know, part of the illusion, yes, but I had to go in here first. And I think that was the big turning point for me, was to realize that everything starts in here first. And in here is my connection to the one mind of God. And then the more you practice that, the more you can experience God's grandeur, right? Because you're accepting of it now. Before I was like, I don't know what that means. Like, it's not getting past this, because nothing was getting past this. But when you open yourself to possibility and you open yourself to, maybe there is something more. Maybe I'll have that little willingness. That little willingness is all the Course says it takes. And when you put yourself in that place of having that little willingness, it comes. It comes. But you have to be willing to not look for anything out here with the ego mind. You have to be willing to set that ego mind aside and surrender all of that stuff that you thought was important. And it doesn't mean it's going to go away. It just means stop making it so important. Just let it go. Stop being afraid of losing everything and connect to that one mind of God. Because when you do that, oh my gosh, your life changes, your world changes. You know, I have truth bumps right now just saying that. And I always get these like full body truth bumps whenever I, you know, get in that place of connection with the one mind of God. And it is true, right? You feel that viscerally. So I don't know if that answered your question.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. But it's a practice, and the lessons are great tools for practicing that. You know, they really do help you to undo and undo and undo. And let me tell you what, like, I've been doing this for almost 33 years now. So there's been a lot of practice. All right, shall we keep going? Does anybody have anything they would like to add or share? All right, let's keep going. All right, many forms, one correction. It is not difficult to understand the reasons why you do not ask the Holy Spirit to solve all problems for you. He has not greater difficulty in resolving some than others. Every problem is the same to him, because each one is solved in just the same respect and through the same approach. The aspects that need solving do not change, whatever form the problem seems to take. A problem can appear in many forms, and it will do so while the problem lasts. It serves no purpose to attempt to solve it in a special form. It will recur and then recur again and yet again until it has been answered for all time, and will not rise again in any form. And only then are you released from it. The Holy Spirit offers you release from every problem that you think you have. They are all the same to him, because each one, regardless of the form it seems to take, is a demand that someone suffer loss and make a sacrifice that you might gain. And when the situation is worked out, so no one loses, is the problem gone, because it was an error in perception that now has been corrected. One mistake is not more difficult for him to bring to truth than is another, for there is but one mistake, the whole idea that loss is possible and could result in gain for anyone. If this were true, then God would be unfair. Sin would be possible, attack be justified, and vengeance fair. This one mistake, in any form, has one correction. There is no loss. To think there is a mistake. You have no problems, though you think you have. And yet you could not think so if you saw them vanish one by one, without regard to size, complexity, or place and time, or any attribute which you perceive that makes each one seem different from the rest. Think not the limits you impose on what you see can limit God in any way. The miracle of justice can correct all errors. Every problem is an error. It does injustice to the Son of God and therefore is not true. The Holy Spirit does not evaluate injustices as great or small or more or less. They have no properties to him. They are mistakes from which the Son of God is suffering, but needlessly. And so he takes the thorns and nails away. He does not pause to judge whether the hurt be large or little. He makes but one judgment, that to hurt God's Son must be unfair, and therefore is not so. You who believe it safe to give but some mistakes to be corrected while you keep the others to yourself, remember this: justice is total. There is no such thing as partial justice. If the Son of God is guilty, then he is condemned, and he deserves no mercy from the God of justice. But ask not God to punish him because you find him guilty and would have him die. God offers you the means to see his innocence. Would it be fair to punish him because you will not look at what is there to see? Each time you keep a problem for yourself to solve, or judge that it is one that has no resolution, you have made it great and past the hope of healing. You deny the miracle of justice can be fair. If God is just, then there can be no problems that justice cannot solve. But you believe that some injustices are fair and good and necessary to preserve yourself. It is these problems that you think are great and cannot be resolved. For there are those you want to suffer loss, and no one whom you wish to be preserved from sacrifice entirely. Consider once again your special function. One is given you to see in him his perfect sinlessness, and you will ask no sacrifice of him, because you could not will he suffer loss. The miracle of justice you call forth will rest on you as surely as on him. Nor will the Holy Spirit be content until it is received by everyone. For what you give to him is everyone's, and by your giving it, can he ensure that everyone receives it equally. Think then how great your own release will be when you are willing to receive correction for all your problems. You will not keep one, for pain in any form you will not want. And you will see each little hurt resolved before the Holy Spirit's gentle sight. For all of them are little in his sight, and worth no more than just a tiny sigh before they disappear, to be forever undone and unremembered. What seemed once to be a special problem, a mistake without a remedy, or an affliction without a cure, has been transformed into a universal blessing. Sacrifice is gone, and in its place, the love of God can be remembered and will shine away all memory of sacrifice and loss. God cannot be remembered until justice is loved instead of feared. He cannot be unjust to anyone or anything because he knows that everything that is belongs to him and will forever be as he created it. Nothing he loves but must be sinless and beyond attack. Your special function opens wide the door beyond, which is the memory of his love kept perfectly intact and undefiled. And all you need to do is but to wish that heaven be given you instead of hell, and every bolt and barrier that seems to hold the door securely barred and locked will merely fall away and disappear. For it is not your Father's will that you should offer or receive less than he gave when he created you in perfect love. I love that it just keeps repeating the same thing over and over again in different ways. Like,
It's because we're hard-headed. We need to hear it many times.
exactly. Like, let's say it again in another way.
You know, that just reaffirmed all of what you said a while ago.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's pretty amazing, you know, and it's a practice. And I have learned to give my mind to the Holy Spirit. I do it every night before I go to bed. I do it every morning when I wake up. You know, that's part of my practice. I give my mind to the Holy Spirit so I can rest in peace. I do that every night before I go to bed. I get up in the morning. I give my mind to the Holy Spirit so I can walk in peace. And of course, during the day, I forget. And then I remember again, and then I forget, and then I remember again.
Yeah, the
Thank you.
Bible is really the same thing. There are only a few real messages. It's like, you know, love God, love yourself, love others, do unto others as you would do unto yourself, which is basically that extension of love. And, you know, it says it in 100,000 ways and examples, because when you're talking to a fisherman, you're not talking about construction and so on and so forth. So you meet people where they are and offer them support or expansion and so on and so forth. And so it's the thing with any of these wonderful teachings, but it all boils down to be peace, because the peace of God I give you, and so on and so forth. The quotes are very specific if you don't apply fear to them. Once you apply fear, then you have to sacrifice to be in God's favor, versus you're just not being attached to something. You're freely able to give it away, and then it comes back to you in another form, and you're in the flow of it. So, my take.
A great point, Mary. You said meet people where they are, right? Because it's really not our job to change anyone. It's really just our job to see them as perfect and complete and whole. That's it. To see our brothers as Christ, as love, as perfection, right? Regardless of what we think they may or may not have done to us or others, right? And there's the challenge, right? To let go of that ego desire to judge and want justice and want attack, right? And instead replace that with love. Because as we just read, it's not our place to judge. It's God's place to offer justice. And God doesn't see anyone as being less than anyone else.
Yeah, I think what's so amazing about the Course in Miracles is that it's like a gateway to like non-dual thinking.
Yes.
You know, like the more you connect with spirit, it's like spirit like transcends kind of your body, and it unifies with other people, and it unifies with God. And the more you're like kind of aware of that reality of spirit and kind of lean on it, the more it just I don't know, reality is different than what we think. You know, like the Course in Miracles teachers always say, like, oh, I was wrong about my five senses. Like, we perceive the world in a certain way, that I'm here and you're there, and but it's a lot different if you're connected to spirit. So that's kind of, I think, the goal of it.
Couldn't agree more with you, Scott.
Yeah.
That's so true. My when my brother was physically in this world, because he's passed, he used to get these downloads during his dark night of the soul. He had HIV and AIDS, and he would get pretty sick. But during that time, he had this real strong connection to spirit, and he would just scribble like whatever came through him, and he would call me the next day and he'd be like, oh my gosh, this is what came through me and it was amazing. And I was like, oh my gosh, I just read this in A Course in Miracles, right? So we were getting the same information, but like you said, from different sources, because they're both connected to that one mind of God, right? So he was telling me one day, he used to live at Laguna Beach, and he said one day, he said he'd go by and see this bag lady, and he'd always feel so sorry for her because she was homeless, and he would always say hello to her and she would say hello back, and he would just feel so guilty. So one day he decided to invite her to lunch and buy her lunch for her. So he was like, I really need to do something for this poor woman. And so he offered to buy her lunch, and they sat down and had lunch. And he was telling me the story, and he said, here I was thinking I was doing her a favor. He said, and she just completely was an angel and gave me so much insight and so much love. And he was like, I thought I was helping her, and she had it all figured out. She was so happy and so full of love, and gave him such amazing insight and advice, and she was completely happy with her life. And he had seen her as less than in his mind, in his eye, because he was looking at her body instead of seeing her spirit. And he said once he got to know her spirit, he said, oh my gosh, she was way more abundant than I was. So that's just another interesting thing that we do. Like, we see people and we judge them as impoverished or not as well off or whatever. And, their abundance is overflowing. They're perfectly happy in their world. And he said, she was just a gift, such a gift and such an angel in his life.
Thank you for sharing that, Terry.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I did want to say, and this is without judgment, I'm keying into a word and without any judgment on who said it, but just the word that was used was, our senses are, it is wrong. And for me, the Course doesn't have judgment. Therefore, it's not that it's right or wrong, which we tend to experience in duality. It has to be either or. But in truth, it's both and.
Mm-hmm.
So we can change our point of view to expand upon the fact that, yes, we use our five senses, but we are not limited to that as our only way of experiencing. There's so much more. There's endless possibilities that are already here for us to look at and experience through and manifest from the unseen to the seen, but we just have to be, or can choose to be. We don't have to do anything. We can choose to be more open to them and have them be available in our reality. So seeing things as whole, all-inclusive, both and, is more, I feel like, what the Course is offering. But we first, since we're steeped in duality, we see it as a choice initially that we feel we have to make. But eventually, you get beyond that way of thinking and come into a whole new resourceful, infinite pool to swim in.
Yeah, good point, Mary. See it more as an opportunity instead of it being wrong or right. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. All right, anybody have any burning desire to share before we close for the day? Because we're almost at that 1:30 point.
I just want to offer that if anyone wants to start the lessons from January 1st and do them one a day, I would be more than willing to be involved in that, especially for the newcomers or ones who are really, want to expand to that, stage, and just discuss them and experience them. So,
Great, Mary. And your phone number is viewable here before your
on
name.
the screen.
Yeah,
It's on the screen.
oh, that's Mary's phone number. I appreciate that offering.
And another thought, I subscribed, I don't know if anybody knows Robin Duncan, but she puts out one lesson per day throughout the entire year. And I've been with her for a year now, listening. She has a very short commentary every morning, and it's really nice. It doesn't take but just, less than 5 minutes. You can look her up and subscribe to that for free.
Amazing. Thanks, Gail. Appreciate that too. I also have a Facebook page, Living A Course in Miracles. If anybody wants to Google that and join that, I share information. Sometimes people ask questions, but I would definitely be open to making that even a more active group. And Mary, that might be a great place to post your offering as well. And if you don't have access to Facebook, I'm happy to do that for you.
Great, thanks. I'd appreciate it if you would.
Of course. All right. Well, with that, I guess we can say see you all next week, hopefully, unless anybody else has anything to share.
I forgot something.
Hello, welcome. This is Chris.
I'm
And
not
today
sure
we
who
have
that
kind of
is.
a
Okay.
unique guest.
I'm going to go ahead and close. Good to see everybody, and I will see you next week. All right. Bye, guys.
All right, bye.